Ray
Mm-hmm.
Poetry wants us to talk about this Dame Dash and Shannon Sharpe interview.
Mm-hmm.
And first off, man, shout out to Ray. I appreciate you even wanting us to cover this because I don't think a lot of publications or enough publications, excuse me, cover Dame Dash in its proper tense, in his proper tense. Anytime they get sound bites from Dame Dash and don't really talk about the whole, and I think some of the sound bites and clips that I've been seeing from other media outlets is talking about either him and Jay or talking about, I guess, him and Kanye's relationship and stuff like that. More of the gossipy things. And I love the interview. I think I'm going to watch it again. And I got a lot from it. I got a lot from it in just and so much respect for Dame. I've always had a lot of respect for Dame. And just his approach. And it makes me feel like, you know what? I'll get into it in a second. What were your thoughts on the interview? Because I could really go on and on about it.
I say we could do a whole show about that interview. I mean, what I will say about Dame is that I know Kanye always gives a more fascinating and striking interview personality wise, but this is the guy that I love hearing talk most in hip hop. Actually, Mike,
Mm.
he's my favorite person to listen to in hip hop speak because he speaks culturally to so many things that embody our culture when he is speaking. For one, I think like if we were ranking our moguls, he would have the intangibles on 10. You know what I mean? And just on a personal level, as far as relatability, some of the things that he said, I understood all too well and all too clearly, you know? And also, to just reference point, I think he made the strongest quote that I've heard in the past decade, which is, I don't hustle for my first name, I hustle for my last name. So he like embodies that and lives
Mm-hmm.
that. And he speaks with a clarity. And when I mean a clarity, because he speaks immediately.
Yeah.
So he's clear about what it is that he's feeling and he's thinking, and he is prepared to answer every question. He's a brilliant man.
I mean, there were tons of quotes even in this interview. Even when the NFL was brought up, and I'm going to get into that in a second, he was like, I'm not going to complain about what they do. I'm going to complain about what I don't do.
That's what I mean.
And it's like, yeah. And it's no way, I feel like, listen, I'm going to go back into that because we're going to talk about the NFL and that relationship and just the current people that work with the NFL and the stuff that's going on with that. But I do want to start with the fact that everything, me personally, that we
Mhm.
love and feel about Rockefeller and what Rockefeller means and what reasonable doubt and all that stuff that Jay talks means,
Mhm.
Dame embodies that to this
Yes.
day. And it's uncompromising. And when I listen to him speak in this Shannon Sharpe interview, this was the fuck the industry Rockefeller that we all fell in love with. And he's always been that. Never changed that. Never adapted to what I guess the industry or what the music industry has told him he needed to do to be successful in it. And he addressed that too. And just the ceiling that is in the industry, like the music industry, depending on what you're trying to do. And
Mhm.
clearly, somewhere down the line, Jay wanted to do something different than what we know Rockefeller for being and what the disruptor that they were in the industry. I mean, I just feel like after listening to Dame and just listening to him talking about different industries and different topics and just entrepreneurship altogether, I don't feel like Jay-Z's a disruptor on no level. He is a what's the word I'm looking for? He has I don't want to say compromised, that's a little bit too harsh, but
It's
he has
harsh.
conformed. He has conformed. Jay-Z has conformed, and for whatever reason we praise that, and that's fine. Anybody can praise that or whatever, but that ownership talk and everything that Dame talks about when it comes to ownership,
Mhm.
I feel like that's what we go to Rockefeller for. And that's honestly what Jay talks in his music, but when the music is done and he's doing these individual moves, it's not always about ownership.
Rarely.
I mean, i.e., we talk about, the Ace of Spades deal from last year. We talk about the title acquisition from Jack Dorsey from last year that put Jay on the Cash App table. This isn't about, gave him a seat at the Cash App table, excuse me. That's not about passing down anything but actual money, which is fine too. But the ownership talk,
that's Dame.
yeah. I think you froze up a little bit.
Am I froze?
Yeah, I think you froze up a little bit.
Want me to hit you back?
Yeah. Clock out and come back in. Let me get to Ray Rim super chat real quick. Shout out. What's up? He's gone. He'll be right back though. Be right back. All right, let me get to Ray Rim super chat. He said Dame Jazz schooled that brother to the point where Shannon's responses were cringeworthy. He said, my name came out as Ray. Oh, okay. Rather than Ray Rim. Okay, shout out to Ray Rim. You're the one that wanted us to talk about this Dame interview. We appreciate that, Ray Rim.
Yeah, he's been up in here.
Yeah. So Ray Rim, he had a comment about what Shannon's responses were. He said, Dame Dash schooled that brother to the point where Shannon's responses were cringeworthy. My name came out as... Okay, he told me that, yeah. All right. Yeah, I mean, the thing was, and I think what you're talking about is when Shannon Sharpe asked Dame Dash about buying an NFL team.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if he schooled Shannon per se, but you also have to understand that, like, where Dame is in business, like you said, he's been a mogul since he was in his early 20s at this. He's almost 50 now. So he just knows things business-wise that Shannon doesn't know because Shannon hasn't existed in that realm. Shannon was an athlete for most of his adult life until his mid-30s, and then has been an on-air personality for the better part of the past decade and a half. So his ventures and his realm into the business world is really recent, last 5 to 10 years. And so when you're speaking to somebody who has like 2, 3, 4 decades worth of experience, and you're like going on decade number 1 worth of experience, and you all are having a dialogue about that about that realm or about that genre or subject matter, of course it's going to look like that person is schooling you because there's a lot to be learned from that person.
Well, I was going to say, I think he wanted to actually be schooled because he's sitting there with Dame to actually soak up knowledge and letting Dame speak about some things that he's experienced in that, like you said, Shannon is dipping into now with his cognac and things like that. I also, like I said, I love the part about the NFL and the fact that Dame is starting his own league. We'll definitely follow that and see what's going on with that. But I've always said, in my personal opinion, we talk about the NFL having 1 or 2 black head coaches and 0 black ownership, where the players themselves are 75% of the league. And I'm like, well, if all of you guys say, you know what, I'm not doing this, there's no game. Like we saw how much power the refs had. You remember when the refs did a holdout, for their money in the NFL? And then had those replacement refs out there calling the games. The games were horrible. And that's just with referees. Can you imagine if all of these players stood together and was like, look, we're not doing this, this, and this until this, this, and this gets done? I mean, baseball's going through theirs right now. I mean, it's probably of money, whatever, but just that unity. You can't sit here and complain about what's not being done if you're not willing to unify, especially when you make the majority and you are the game, to do things to change it. Especially with the system. Go ahead.
Hold on, and I want to say this. There is the players need to understand that they do have a lot of power in these situations, because I'm going to tell you what, and everybody that knows me knows this. Oh, my favorite team of all my sports teams are the Atlanta Braves. But do you want to know which sport that I participate in terms of frequenting the least? It is baseball. And because you want to know why? It's because of that strike. Because I feel like that strike cost the best team that we had potentially the World Series, because people were bickering about money. Like, it literally cost our team. And I never forgot that as a young kid and as a fan. And I really haven't looked at baseball the same way since then.
I've had my issues with baseball I played baseball for like 10 years, and and the strike was kind of around, well, it was earlier than that, but a lot of my issues with baseball do follow around that time period as well. Well, all right, the NFL. Well, baseball is a good place to go because there's one thing that I always get flack for in saying this, and I'm sure some people in the chat are gonna have a problem with this as well, but I don't view Jackie Robinson as a hero. I don't. The Negro League was thriving. It was black owned, all black players, and it was making money. Crossing that picket line was the one move that destroyed the only pro sports league that was black owned, black operated, black coaches, all of those things.
Okay.
I don't find that heroic. I just don't. You know what I'm saying? I don't.
Hold on. We're going to pause for a second.
Okay.
I would have to say that's, first of all, Mike, that's a very, very strong statement that you're making. Like, it's very strong. You understand what you're saying, right?
I do.
Okay. What I would have to say is that your statement is more viable if we can go back and check the numbers and see that the economic viability and sustainability would have been there for that league. Does that make sense?
It was there. It was there. It was there. Yes, it was there. They were doing the same numbers.
Hold on. When I'm saying there and sustainable, as in it's going to flourish into the same multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar industry on that side as it did on the other side?
Who knows? Why wouldn't it?
I mean, what I'm saying is financially, if we were to go look at the economics of it, would it project to be that? Was it projecting to be that, is what I'm saying.
If that weighed in Jackie Robinson's decision, maybe I could go for that, but I doubt that's what it was. Because the thing about it was, too, it wasn't like that there was it wasn't like this was just a talent gap, right? You had guys in the Negro League that were much better than the guys in the Major League and vice versa, whatever. The talent level was equal, right? Jackie Robinson wasn't even one of the best players in the Negro League.
No. He was, he probably like 10 to 20. Yeah, like 10 to 20 best players.
You know what I'm saying?
No. He was like, 10 to 20 best players. Or at least as far as young prospects concerned, he would have been a top 10 young prospect.
It wasn't like he was Josh Gibson or something. You know what I'm saying? Josh Gibson's out here hitting 900 home runs in his career.
No. He's not Josh Gibson or prime Satchel Paige by any means, but like.
And if we want to sit here and look at this though, and just to kind of pinpoint what you're talking about, look at the black players that came after this. So you can't tell me that a Willie Mays wouldn't have made this league viable. You can't tell me talents like a Barry Bonds, a King Griffey, Junior, Senior, whatever, wouldn't have made this league viable. The talent is there. At that point, when the structure was already there, the players were already there, the clubs were already there. At this point, you're just dealing with the talent. And I'm not going to put all of this on Jackie, but he was the guy who did it. If it wasn't him, it probably would have been somebody else. But so I'm just saying.
What you're saying, you feel like his convalescence led to the one thing we had ownership of in the sports world.
Yes. And the possibilities of there being a basketball league that duplicated that would have been higher. The possibilities of there being a football league that duplicated what the Negro League did would have been even higher.
No, I'm digging what you're putting down, Mike, just because it's like, you know how I feel about our people, but you know how I feel about like the numbers backing up the feeling too. So it's like the numbers back the feeling. You got a very, very valid point.
The talent's there. And like I said, the system was already there.
We're not talking about talent.
No, I'm just saying. That's the only thing at that point.
We don't even have to go to Barry Bonds and King Griffey. Like, we can stay right there with Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, Robbie Peru, Bob Gibson.
Yeah.
You know, like what you want to do.
Straight up.
We might end up with guys like Roberto Clemente.
Yeah, we would.
What's his name? The catcher.
Are you talking about Johnny Bench?
No,
you're talking about Morgan.
Perez.
Oh, yeah. And again, I'm not knocking anybody who feels another way. Like I said, I catch a lot of flack for saying that anyway because of the the adversity that Jackie had to take. But I was watching a documentary, and they were talking about some of the other players that followed him after that, and they were getting treated like shit by the fans, by their teammates, and all of that. And a lot of them felt like Jackie had basically, lured them into this situation. I mean, they made their own choices, but they were treated with all the stuff that Dame Dash was talking about: respect. They had, possibilities for ownership and everything when it came to the Negro League.
Dame is big on respect. That's why I like Dame so much.
Yeah.
And Dame lets you know like how he feels about being respected and like where he's at with it. And he doesn't apologize for it. That's what I mean. It's like I love hearing him speak because it's like, no, he's letting you know exactly who he is, where he's coming from, the why. He even expresses and discusses some of the traumatic circumstances that psychologically affect his decision-making process. He's like, no, I'm traumatized. He's like, so yeah, he's like feeling disrespected. I'm going to respond. Yeah.
I think on another note too, man, when you talk about the competitive level, right? We big up Babe Ruth, and we'll get back to the Dame Dash interview in a second. No, I mean Babe Ruth.
America? You mean like America?
Babe Ruth is great. America, you know what I'm saying? Like baseball, period. Like they put Babe Ruth at the highest of everything, but
hold on. So how you feel like about Jackie? That's how I feel about Babe Ruth. It's like, well, show me the black people and the Hispanics he played against, and it's like, well,
exactly.
That's how I feel about all those white guys.
That's what I was gonna get to.
Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig. It's like, yeah, that's cool. Show me the black guys they played against. It's like, oh,
they didn't compete against everybody.
Hold on, guess what? Asterisks.
You're right.
Asterisks.
They didn't compete against everybody. I'll give you that.
Against everybody, so I don't want to hear how great Babe Ruth was.
The rules were slightly different too, right? And
black people, he wouldn't have had that many home runs had he played black pitchers. He wouldn't have struck out that many people if he would have had played against black hitters. So he's not that great. We don't know.
I will say this. I will give Babe Ruth this, and I always find this interesting. Babe Ruth was leagues ahead of the people that he played with. But no. But no one ever says anything against that. But when we start talking about Wilt Chamberlain scoring 100 points in the game 45 years later, everybody, he didn't play against anybody. Man played against Bill Russell. If y'all are gonna say that stuff about Wilt Chamberlain, I'm gonna need y'all to have that same smoke for Babe Ruth.
I mean, who are the greatest players before Babe Ruth shows up? Rogers, Hornsby, and Cy Young, correct? I mean, right? And then and after him, Lou Gehrig. And Lou Gehrig was probably a better all-around player offensively. He just wasn't a pitcher. And so it's like you didn't have a lot of comp, fam.
Well, I'm not going to shit on Babe Ruth. He was great. He was definitely leagues ahead of everybody that was playing at the time.
Great. He was great against like playing against white people. Like in a league where if you go look at the numbers, Mike. I mean, looks like blacks, especially offensively, and Hispanics are Albert Pujols, Ken Griffey Jr., Barry Bonds, Hank Aaron. I mean, what are we talking about? You get what I'm saying? So, no, he's not that great.
Well, you know what? You're answering my question about how valuable the Negro League would have been.
No, I'm not. See, that's what I'm saying. I was always taught in relationship.
Reggie Jackson, yeah.
Yeah, Reggie
all
Jackson.
That, man.
All that.
Imagine if all of those players were, because, again, it wasn't like it was a talent gap here. Stayed in the Negro League, and the Negro League continued to thrive and was making money, this and that. And then did not cross that picket line.
Like, what year did Ted Williams hit 400? People keep holding on to because I'd be like, yeah, give me Tony Gwynn's 394 in the strike-shortened season because he was hitting up against everybody. Randy Johnson in his prime, Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, John Smoltz, Roger Clemens, Pedro Martinez.
So, with all that being said, I really admire what Dame Dash is doing. But now at this point, if you're starting a whole nother league, there's going to be a talent gap, right? Because he's doing an arena football league. People could say, oh, well, they couldn't beat this team. The Negro League was a place where it was all equal. You know what I'm saying? And that single, I'm going to call it what it is, crossing the picket line moment for Jackie Robinson tore all of those things into array. And it just did. And for me, I don't feel like that's heroic. I understand why the mainstream media wants you to feel like Jackie Robinson is a hero, but not to me.
No, I mean, you know, I'm a contrarian, Mike. I like what you're putting down. Like I said, I just want to check the numbers because you know how I feel about it. You heard how I just talked about Babe Ruth. I mean, so
Yeah.
you know how I really feel about it at the end of the day. So it's like, and this is what I mean. I was taught or educated as such that part of like the barrier being crossed had to deal with the Negro League struggling to survive and to pay its players by. That's a falsehood.
That was not the case. No,
Yeah,
because
well,
this is
that's
right
a falsehood.
after. Yeah, I mean, because let's keep it real. Even back then, when they want to talk about integration and all of that, there was the black side of town where we had the clubs, we had the bars. You know, we got all the jazz bands and this and that. White folks was trying. They wanted to come to that side of town and kick it. So you don't think they wanted to go to these baseball games where it was all black players? Like you said, let's keep it real. I don't care how people feel about it. They're faster, you know what I'm saying? More athletic. Their games were probably much more entertaining.
Exciting.
Exactly.
Yep.
So you want to sit here and tell me they weren't making money?
Entertainment value.
Let's be real now. So it wasn't no TV where you could flick the channel or whatever. They were going to these games.
Mm-hmm.
And this league was making money and the infrastructure was there. And I think that's why I feel so strongly about that single incident, because the infrastructure was there. That could have definitely carried over to basketball easily. That could have definitely carried over to football. There weren't endorsement deals at that time. So imagine once those things came about, these leagues would have got this first.
No, I like everything that you're putting down, Mike. It makes me smile. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, no, you're saying some solid stuff, and and I'm glad that we're having this conversation, the relationship, and talking about somebody like Dame Dash, because you know what you're doing with that sentiment is much like Dame Dash did throughout that interview and does all the time. Well, he's making you think and challenge the status quo, the thought to make you think about, well, why does the status quo exist that way? Does that status quo even benefit me at all? Does it even benefit me to think in this frame of mind?
I just find it so interesting listening to that interview how differently Dame and Jay are when it comes to how they look at business.
No, I don't think it's how they look at it. I think it's in terms of operations. I think it's the operation of the business. It's like, and that's what he means. Remember when he was like, no, he played for that team over there. Like, I don't like how they that's Dame saying, it's like, no, I don't like how they operate. They business over there. I'm operating like this.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that was to keep things self-contained and
right. Dame's not gonna cut checks off after he sells off a piece. He's like, no. He's like, it's like own this. You heard how he talked about his friends' houses? Like, I got a lot of friends with big houses.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, you want your own house, and then if you don't have your own house, you can't complain about how you're treated in someone else's house.
Hey, real talk. It's hard for me to stay in somebody's home that's not as comfortable as mine, Mike. Because why would I do that? That's not a slight to you.
Yeah.
I'm used to living a certain type of way. So I want to be comfortable.
When it's yours, it feels different.
Right. You don't like it? It's like, I'm comfortable at home. It's what I'm used to.
I mean, let's just be real. And like Dame said, and I'm glad he said this because a lot of people don't say this on, you know, big outlets, but doesn't matter how much money you have. The NFL does not have to let you in as an owner.
Letting you know.
They vote on these things.
Hold on. Can we go to another strong thing that he said when he was talking about all that? He's like, they don't even use their money. And I want people to understand this again. They don't even use their money. You hear I said they sell the branding and the naming and the rights and the licenses to the stuff before it's even erected to get it erected.
No, he's right.
Are you taking notes, everybody? Is everybody sitting back and taking notes?
And I think that, you know, even myself, like, you know, even though you look into some of these things, there's a lot of these things you don't know until you actually deal with. And from somebody like Dame, who is dealing with it and has dealt with it, you kind of got to listen to what he's saying. You know what I'm saying? Because there'll be people like, oh, Dame ain't got no money. Dame don't. Look, he knows.
Hold on.
How
Mike.
many teams have you bought
or
attempted to buy?
Hold on, Mike. I mean, let's just get personal with it right quick. And this is what I mean about how, like, you have to see stuff. I came to you 3 years ago, and I was like, I kind of want to, like, a piece of According to Hip Hop, because I can kind of see, like, where we're going and what we're doing and wanting to take part in it. It's like I didn't want to just, like, play on the team. That's what I mean about how I can relate to the game. I was like, no, Mike, I'm like, we're going somewhere. It's like, I want a small stake someday to pass on to my kid. Like, we like not to sell it off,
to build. That's what it's about. It's about building.
And what are we here doing? You know what I'm saying? So it's like people got to understand the frame. There has to be a certain frame of mind that comes with it. And so like Dame isn't as arrogant or as cocky as he seems is really what I was trying to say.
You know, him and Kanye have a lot of similarities in that, right? And I want to get to Unknown's.
It's arrogant.
Let me get the Unknown super chat, man. He says, I agree with the problem with segregation and separate and equal wasn't the separate part. It was the equal part. Right. You know, it's again, just there's a stat. I think it was I think Obama was on like the Breakfast Club, and he said something like he got the what was it? I want to get the stat right. I think it was the black unemployment rate. He said he got the black unemployment rate down to a record number that it's been since 1968. And I'm like, damn, you telling me we was doing better before 1968? But I'm just saying, like, when you talk about being able to survive in your own communities, and a lot of other communities in America are able to do that seamlessly because they have that language barrier, right? Like, you know, you have Hispanic grocery stores and they're going to have Hispanic patrons. A lot of that due to, you know, different language barriers possibly in different communities, but that keeps them being able to shop with each other. No other community has to be told that they need to shop black. You know what I mean? Or bank black or whatever. Those things are just automatic. But before before integration, we were at that point and we were financially viable.
You want to know what? And here is my thing. Not even being financially viable, to speak to that just a little bit. And we can kind of like...
Independent as well, yeah.
That's the part about it. It's more about the independence, the integrity, and the trust. Because you want to know what came with the integration really? Was further distrust of each other.
It's true.
And I see it every day. Mike, like all jokes aside, selling life insurance, like people like kind of like black people check me. Like it's like the black integrity check to make sure the stuff that I is actually am telling them is real. Because it's almost like they can't believe it. And I've even told a couple of them, like on some time to kill shit, like imagine a white person is saying this to you. And that's when they're like, oh, come on in. I'm like, yeah, right. Man, that's what immigration did too. You get what I'm saying? Like,
no, you're right.
Communities in terms of even like the value system in terms of us trusting each other. It's like I've had to tell people, it's like, imagine a white guy's telling you this right now, though, and they're like, oh.
I feel bad. Yo, my parents are from Anniston, Alabama, right? I grew up in the 80s and early 90s, whatever. I remember going to Anniston, and the black businesses that clearly had been around since like the 70s and probably even 60s, they were still around thriving. They were on their last leg. And, I saw as I grew older and older, that city's like a ghost town now, man. And it's unfortunate. I don't know the details. I know Fort McClellan was a big part of the city's economy. And it was a Fort base. It was an Army base. And so when that base went down, a lot of the economy went with it. But it's interesting to see that a lot of those, black-owned businesses that probably were in the segregation era that were passed down one generation didn't make it a second and third generation. And I don't know if people sold. That's possibly a thing. But, yeah, I mean, ownership, I saw what ownership looked like passed down. And I guess I was the last generation to see that. And we're talking about just a regular, middle-class community in Alabama.
No, so Mike, so let's go to this on my side, and this kind of speaks to who we are and how we ended up here together. Well, the Coopers have owned land since about 1910, and so that's kind of been our family business, is the ownership of land and farming. And what I'm currently in the process of doing is looking for land to buy to do what? Cultivate and farm, because it's the only thing that my family's ever known. that they've ever shown me that is lineage, success, foundational, building. These are the things Dame Dash is speaking to. He just happens to be in the entertainment industry, but he's really talking about it on a black wealth level for every family. You get what I'm saying? For my family, it's land and farming. It's what we've done.
Yeah.